Lots of complaints about the reserve list being too expensive. The cards are old. I can't find the cards. Where can we get them? Well, it turns out there are plenty of really good reserve list cards for about $5. So today, we're going to show you our top 5 reserve list cards for about $5.
You too could be an evil investor.
Stay with us.
Welcome to Mad Magic TV, home of multiple personalities, but single-colored crew socks.
All right, thank you, Liliana. Welcome all to Mad Magic. 5 reserve list cards for $5. Let's not waste a minute. Thallid, you've got your picks. So with that,
Number 5, Jabari's Influence.
All right, my number 5 pick for being an evil investor, just like Mad Magic TV's crew, is Jabari's Influence.
Jabari's Influence, a 5-mana white card. Play only after combat. Gain control of target non-artifact, non-black creature that attacked you this turn and put a -1 power counter on it. Why do you like this card? Card from Mirage. Why is this one of our picks?
Okay, so this has 1 printing, obviously. It's a reserve list card. 3 and 2 white to cast. Granted, it costs an arm and a leg. And it's in the unarguably the worst color in Magic. However, what it does is it's kind of like a budget version of Gilded Drake against decks that attack with their commander. There's plenty of decks like that, like Timna the Weaver. They must attack with their commander. Wynota. Those kinds of commander decks need not so much Timna, but something like Wynota. They need their commander to win the game. It's as simple as that. If Wynonna doesn't exist, there's not really an alternative to winning the game. So this lets you, at instant speed, gain control of your opponent's commander, as long as they attacked with it, and they can't do anything to it. It doesn't go back to their command zone. At that point in time, they have to remove their own commander from play under your control so they get it back. Now, this card right now, as it sits, it's currently around $1.
Let's take a look at TCG Player here. We can see near mint, they're showing $1.12, right? So we're talking about around $5 or way less, right? Not bad. And it's been going down. And as you mentioned, it's not an enchantment, right? So it's an instant, which means you get that command, you get that card, and then you just keep it. So people are charging, some shipping for some of these things, but you can probably find, like of 3, right? So here's $1, and then you can go ahead and roll that through way under $5. What would you guess would be a top end for this card?
I think can we pull up MTG stocks and see what the all-time high is?
Okay, so looking at influence on MTG stocks, COVID spike, of course. So we did see all-time highs, about $8 in there. And then this thing has been as low as a little bit under 50 cents.
If you could scroll down just a little bit, all-time high, $9. In my opinion, there's absolutely no reason that this card wouldn't see its all-time high again. I know that the COVID thing was, a black swan event, and that was something special with all like the helicopter money falling to us, to everybody and their mother and their dead mother, even in some cases. But I totally think that we haven't seen an all-time high on a card like this. It's a cool card. It's not a sweaty card. It's gonna make people salty at the commander table if it resolves. At least the person you resolve it against is going to be salty. But we're not talking Armageddon or Stasis levels of salty. So this can fit into a good casual commander deck, and it's if you are playing white, it's a good budget alternative to the blue Gilded Drake.
Number 4, the squirreling little bastard, Frenetic Efreet.
All right, so number 4 is Frenetic Efreet. Thallid, why did you pick this one?
I absolutely love this card. And not only is it like a pet card of mine, because it was in a very successful deck that I had designed and built in the past, but it currently works very well and combos with another card to produce an infinite number of treasures. And it slides right in to the blue-red sweaty as hell commander deck, Sakashima Krark. So this card itself combos with Tavern Scoundrel. Tavern Scoundrel is whenever you win a coin flip, create 2 treasure tokens. Now with Frenetic Efreet, basically what you do is you can flip an infinite number of times. You can flip in response to flipping. So you're still going to trigger the flips no matter what happens. So an infinite number of flips means an infinite number of treasure tokens. So this card, the Frenetic Efreet, seeing a spike in price around the time that there was a secret layer printed. Then that was a blue-red secret layer that revolved around a deck designed by Gavin Verhey that was a coin flip deck. So during that time, the card did see another spike. So you see a spike, I think, right around like the same time that the other COVID spikes happened. Then you see a retracement, and then you should see another spike right around the time that deck was either announced or released.
Yeah, it says all-time high $87.75, right? So, and now
that was probably a buyout.
that's disgusting. But anyway, lightly played 456. Let me go ahead and throw up some filters here to show some near mints off.
Now you see
$5.39.
Just the near mint copies. I think it said there's 59 available, something like that. So, 60, when we talk about these 5 under 5, and if you really want to try to do a buyout on a card, with a modest amount of money, you can control the price of cards on the market. And I'm sure we'll get a bunch of negative comments. Please tell me how much you hate me because I said that in the comment section below. But you can easily control the Magic market with a modest amount of money. To some people, it might not appear modest, but if I take $1,000 and I could probably wipe out the entire market of this card in North America of every single near mint copy that's currently listed. Now, at that point, the price is going to go up. I'm sure there's going to be a paywall where there's going to be a price jump. And but at that point, when there is the price jump, people that didn't want to sell before, they're going to dig in their binders because there are a lot of copies of this card that exist, and they're going to post them for sale. And that's going to cause the card to retrace because there's going to be a race to the bottom again. But if you buy and hold long enough and you do a slow drip back on the market, you can make a lot of money doing buyouts on reserve list cards like this.
So, Thallid, do you think that, $80 is probably a buyout or some weirdo fluke, but, looking at about $5 right now for Frenetic Efreet, what do you think is a not unreasonable dollar amount for this card to hit at some point again?
I think that all day in America, there's going to come a time where this is going to be a minimum of a $20 card. There's just going to be more cards that are printed that are similar to the Tavern Scoundrel. And even in the event that there aren't, this card is also playable in a format called Middle School, which is similar to Old School, except it includes some more of the Silver Age sets, like the Mirage Block and stuff. And it's a very playable creature. It's a very good creature for its day. 3 mana for a 2/1 flyer that is very difficult to remove from the table,
Card number 3. Just sit there and look pretty, because I just cast a Bance.
Why do you like Abeyance? Why are we sticking it on this list?
Well, keep in mind there's always fluctuations in market price. I was able to find a moderately played copy for under $5 on TCG Player. So I broke the rules a little bit, but what's life without breaking a few rules? You know what I mean? But
Let's
I love Abeyance.
Yep, moderately played, $5.50.
This card is so undervalued in my opinion. It's even playable by today's standards and competitive Elder Dragon Highlander. It's a colorless and a white. Worst case scenario is just a cantrip, so you're just replacing it with another card. But in general, what you're doing is you're either protecting your combo when you resolve this by targeting another player. Like there might be, if there's a blue player at the table, maybe you Gitaxian probe someone else, what's in their hand. you target this person and then you go off and protect your combo, because that person can't do anything, right? The other thing that this does is it protects yourself from other people's combos. Because with a card like, let's say someone is casting Ad Nauseam and they're using like Born Upon a Wind or something like that, so everything that they can cast at instant speed or something like that. You can always cast Abeyance and they can't go off on that turn that they Ad Nauseam if the Abeyance resolves. So it replaces itself, and it protects your combo. It can't protect your combo in a similar fashion to Grand Abolisher, although it's not as solid as Grand Abolisher as far as protecting your combo. But it has the versatility, and it replaces itself as a card.
Well, Grand Abolisher is he kind of like a hate bear, right? So he's a little creature, and I think he's just 2/2. So he's a lot more fragile than that. So you got to get him on the board, and people can then like undo it. Whereas when Abeyance resolves, like that's it. And so one of our buddies that we play Commander with has this big green like elf deck, and he has a way of bouncing his elves back and forth, grabbing a bunch of mana and everything else. And what I like about Abeyance is that anytime you wanted to assault him in some way, he would then go blam, 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 and then everything, it was a mess and it was complicated. And so when you throw Abeyance out, he would freak out, right? And you would force your opponent to have to guess at what you would do, and then they would go off doing all of their things, and then they would resettle their board state. And then you would be free to go after them after that. And so that's something else too. As soon as people see that, whatever it was that they had planned, they now have to go first, and they don't get a chance to react anymore. And that is, with Abeyance, I think is just insanely good, about this card. People like freak out when they're not allowed to do anything. And so reactionary decks, I think, are extraordinarily vulnerable to a card like this.
Now, if we could pull this card up on MTG stocks and take a look at it, take a look at its all-time high. Much like everything else we've seen, I believe actually this didn't get much of a bump during the COVID spike. The COVID spike was right around
$57, right? Was the all-time high, but
right.
That wasn't COVID.
Oh yeah, that's around that time. Yeah, but it doesn't seem like it's reflected on the graph.
It's a much more of a. It's a longer hump.
During when the shutdowns first took place, when everything was shut down, that's the time period when Ikoria was released. But I would certainly include that as an extension of the COVID money. So yeah, it is. It was a COVID card. But the card, it's a great card. I see this card one day hitting $50 again. I mean, it's very realistic to me that this would be a $50 card.
Something else that's a caveat of the reserve list. I think this is an area that I understand people's gripes. I think that it's good that they do it this way. Otherwise, the reserve list wouldn't mean anything. But what could be frustrating about it is that Wizards also agreed to not make another card that basically does the exact same thing, right? And they just call it something different. So like they can't make a green card and call it Abeyance, and it literally does the same thing, right? And so this card's ability to basically freeze your opponent out is something, not only is this a reserve list card, but to have that effect, to be able to do that, is something that Wizards has to keep getting more and more creative to be able to create cards that do that. And frankly, I don't even think that Wizards likes to do that, make cards like that anymore. Like they'll talk about like the agency of your turn. Like they don't want to be able to put cards into play where basically you just have to sit there now and you're helpless and wait for your opponent to just do everything. Like nobody likes that feeling, right? Now, early on in Magic, back here in these Weatherlight days and everything else, and these would be reserve list sets from the beginning, that was commonplace. I mean, people that were playing control decks absolutely would go out of their way. It was specifically to destroy your resources of your cards, your mana, and everything else, and just have you sitting there like a little duck sucking your thumb, waiting to die. And finally Wizards kind of had a flip on that, so we don't want really let that be something that is normal anymore. We just want a bunch of creatures attacking each other. But there it is. Abeyance is out there. So I don't think, not only is this card itself reserved, but I don't think that we're going to see a lot more printings of other attempts at trying to stop your opponent from doing stuff.
Yeah, I think R&D mostly wants people to just turn cards sideways, and it's been a long time that that's been the strategy, just as you said. Turn creatures sideways and block and kill each other with creatures. That's the direction of R&D. It has been for over a decade. I just wanted to make a quick note as well about these cards that we're discussing. And you always want to talk about this when we're talking about reserve list cards or investing in cards. Look at the downside risk and compare it to the upside risk. So you do a risk gain analysis, and a lot of the ways that I do this is I look at the all-time high of the card and I look at the all-time low of the card, and then I compare the multiplier. And you've got a card like this that has an all-time high of $50, $60, and the all-time low is probably around, it's probably near or at all-time lows, maybe $2 or something. But there's so little risk to the downside, like even if you wanted to resell the card and it doesn't go up and you subtract fees, then you're out like $1. However, if it goes back to all-time highs, you could potentially 9 or 10x your money.
Card number 2, Crawworm. I'm just kidding. It's Paradigm Shift.
Okay, well, this is an interesting number 2 card. I say it all the time on our show here when we're participating with others. I'm talking about Magic the Gathering, things that manipulate the mechanics of the game, like your library, like your deck, like your number of turns, like the amount of mana, phases, things like that are always interesting because that's how you really start to break things. And this one, I suspect, does a little bit about this. So tell me something about our number 2 card.
This card is so unique, and we're going to go back to Weatherlight with this rare Paradigm Shift.
I mean, it's a blue and a colorless. Remove all cards from your library from the game, shuffle your graveyard into your library, which can now say like leave you with 5 or 6 cards, something like that.
So there's a lot of reasons I love this card. One, it currently has stuff that it combos with. There's plenty of decks that want cards in their graveyard. So a lot of times, especially in early game, you're going to have a disproportionate amount of cards in your graveyard relative to your library, right? So you can take advantage of that. In the very early game, you could also take advantage of this card in combination with Thassa's Oracle potentially to just straight up win the game, especially if you have the correct devotion to blue. First couple turns, it could be very easy to win the game in that manner. However, like the biggest reason I like the card is because of things to come, things that we don't know about yet. There's cards like, this card is on the reserve list. So assuming that they're not going to mislead us on that fact, as scared as we have been about that lately. There's so much stuff, there's so many different mechanics that they could come up with, or that could be printed that could make this even broken. Like imagine like an enchantment that said, whenever while this enchantment is in play, rather than draw a card, whenever you would draw a card, instead choose a card from your graveyard and put it into your hand. Like there could be like a card like that. Like you have to think about future design space. And if something like that were to be printed, or there could be any other stuff that could be printed or mechanics that could make this way better. So this is the kind of card that like you could buy now for around the $5 mark.
Yep.
You could buy, at least a play set, maybe 10 copies, throw them in your spec box, and a couple years down the road, especially when they either someone else buys the card out so it spikes in price, so you can put them on the market and sell them, or when that new mechanic comes along that lets you do something crazy with this card, and it has a lot of potential for it to interact with different design space, then you've got your cards and they're only $5 rather than waiting till it's a $50 card or a $100 card. And I don't
see any reason at an LGS if they had 10 copies of this, considering right here you see that's a particular near mint here, right? But there you go, $5. Yes, there's some shipping, but if you go to LGS compared to what the price actually is, which is, you know, maybe $6.50 or something. You say, I'll buy all 10 of them for $5 a piece. That they don't say, sure. Right. I mean, this is not a fast moving card. It's an older card, not on people. So I agree with the kind of the $5 mark. I think you might have to do some negotiating if you have like, or best offers that you see on eBay. I bet you get people to bite on it for about $5. And something else I was noticing on TCG Player, so it's all-time high, $47, right? And here we are floating somewhere around 5. I love this chart on TCG. It's just flatlining, right? So over the past 10 days or so, nothing is going on, and it's only been going in one direction. And so the other reason you go to an LGS, if they're debating on it, you know, they're going to go to their computer screen, look on TCG, see what's going on. They're going to see that graph and go, okay. You know, some may say no, right? But it's not offensive. You're not asking for it to be 90% off, you know? And so, yeah, I agree. This is a really cool card, really old card, and something I think has been ignored.
Card number 1, Cadaverous Bloom. Let's make stuff out of dead people.
Cadaverous Bloom has a special place in my heart. The card is absolutely busted, and I'm surprised that it is not worth more than it is currently today. It's 3 colorless and Golgari, 3 colorless, black and a green. For an enchantment, you choose a card in your hand and remove it from the game, and you either add 2 black or 2 green to your mana pool. The card's absolutely disgusting.
It was broken when they first made it. I think they restricted it rapidly because people were grabbing tons of mana and prosperitying for 20 cards and, you know, all that stuff. I don't remember what the win condition was exactly back then, but basically they were like fireballing you, more or less, in some version of that, right? Really fast.
Yeah, there was a Pros Bloom deck, and basically it dominated. It was pretty dominant in what standard was then called Type 2, and it was absolutely dominant in Mirage Block Constructed, because all the cards in the deck are basically in Mirage Block Constructed. It was 4 copies each of Impulse, Vampiric Tutor, Squandered Resources, Natural Resources, Cadaverous Bloom, Prosperity,
Natural Balance. I think.
Yeah, Natural Balance. There was 1 Drain Life. There were some abeyances. So you reduced variance with cards like Impulse and Vampiric Tutor and the cantrip ability of abeyance. And the prosperities, sometimes you would just prosperity to try to draw into a combo piece you were missing. So it was very efficient for the combo deck that it was. Now today, that was you know, close to 30 years ago at this point, probably like 28 years, when Mirage Block first came out. I'm surprised that this hasn't found some kind of home in Commander in like a super sweaty competitive deck, because it just seems like it's a very good card, and there's so many things that could be printed in the future that's going to make this card worth even more.
No, that's a no way. This is a weird spike. I have seen this card myself for $5 and less. We can look at some other sites. Here's Lightly Played, right? $5. And we all know, go ahead, tell everybody for the 90th time. What do you get with a Lightly Played card on TCG Player?
In general, if you're buying a Lightly Played card on TCG Player from a seller with you know, a high volume of sales and positive feedback, you're getting a near mint card. Nobody wants to, at least like a bigger company, it's already a pain in the ass selling someone 1 card for $5 and packaging it. They don't want complaints, and they don't want people saying, you said this was near mint, and look at this small tiny nick in the corner that I found. And in general, the cards are near mint, or as close as near mint as can be.
Here's our M2G stocks, right? Here's our COVID spike. So all-time high looks to be somewhere around $20, $25, about $24.50. And then just like everything else, although the spike on this card was much shorter, Abeyance had some other cards we talked about had a much more gradual decline. But then it's been kind of going down and down and down. Now, by the way, everybody, have you kind of noticing a theme here from all of these graphs? Down and down and down. It's becoming a great time to buy cards in general. I think we're going to be able to do more of these reserve list cards for $5. And I get it, there's hundreds of reserve list cards, but ones that you wouldn't expect to only be $5. Now it's all speculation. We can all wonder, but I think that these cards are going to be staying down for a minute, right? I don't think that we're going to see a big upshot in prices of cards in the next 3 months. Might see a bump for the convention, but there is nothing fundamental going on that's going to make a lot of cards going up in price. It seems to be going in the other direction, but they shall return.
Everything is on a downswing. Any alternative asset market it's a great time to pick up any cards that you want, either one copy of just to in the future for your commander deck. And if you want to speculate on cards, it's also a great time. Most stuff is near swing lows at the very least, if not near their like all-time low relative to time period since 2017 and the 2017 spike. So in my opinion, buy them while you can, get them while they're hot.
Please like and subscribe, or I'll make sure that corpse on Cadaverous Bloom is you.
Magic.